Bong Joon-ho's Parasite is hands down my favorite movie of the 2010s. It's hard to think of another film that's able to effortlessly blend genres like thriller and dark comedy and still manages to deliver a coherent and masterful vision. Its critique of class inequality is unmatched, and every scene is loaded with meaning. But one thing that really sets Parasite apart for me is how its themes are able to really deeply align with some beliefs of the Catholic Church, believe it or not. Pope Leo XIII's encyclical Rerum Novarum was a very important document in Catholic tradition. It addresses many different issues of class inequality, class struggle, and wealth disparity. And during that time when industrialization was at an all-time high, it was extremely timely. Despite being released over a century later, Parasite's themes deeply align with the sentiments expressed by Rerum Novarum, showing just how Pope Leo XIII's teachings were truly timeless. Parasite might not seem like a religious film on the surface, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's trying to be, but through its themes of poverty and labor and inequality, it becomes a spiritual critique as much as a social one. This video will be split up into 3 sections, with each section describing a method in which Parasite conveys its themes, and through that, I'll be relating it to Rerum Novarum. With that being said, let's move on to the first section, which is... In Parasite, language is not just used for communication. It's a weapon used by the Parks to perpetuate wealth disparity and class divide. One of the most prominent examples of this is when Mr. Park consistently comments about Mr. Kim's smell.
그 냄새가 나는데?
뭔 냄새?
김 기사님 스멜.
김 기사? 난 잘 모르겠는데.
그거. 그 오래된 무말랭이 냄새? 아니다. 그 행주 삶을 때 나는 냄새. 뭐 있지? 그런 걸 합시다.
You see, in Korea, many lower-class families can only afford to live in basement dwellings, and it's stated in the movie that these basement dwellings is what give the Kims their smell. So it essentially means that the smell is tied to them being poor. It's not about what Mr. Park says, but rather the fact that he can say it. Mr. Park is allowed to make these offhanded comments to Mr. Kim because he's the one in power. The wealth disparity between the Kims and Parks extends way past them just what they can afford. It also applies to their social standings, what they can or can't say, and the overall power that they have in society. When relating this to Rerum Novarum, we can see the stark similarities. Specifically, Pope Leo XIII says, to defraud anyone of dignity is a great crime, something that is clearly violated in the way that the rich speak about the poor. The idea that someone's body or smell can disqualify them from full social acceptance is a tragic reflection of society, and one that uses language itself as a tool of exclusion. These similar themes of defrauding in both Parasite and Rerum Novarum help show how both works see language as a tool that oppressors use to keep laborers exploited and below them. Parasite is packed with Marxist themes, though Bong Joon-ho never simplifies it into just ideology. Rather, he shows how class struggle operates subtly and structurally. Take that semi-basement apartment that the Kims live in I was talking about earlier. It is a literal halfway point between poverty and visibility. Their existence is hidden from the wealthy, just as the Park family is oblivious to how their luxury exploits the Kims. In Marxist theory, there's a belief of 2 different classes: the bourgeoisie, those who control the labor, and the proletarians, those who perform the labor. In the movie, we can see a clear divide between the bourgeoisie and the proletarians, with the bourgeoisie being represented through the Parks and the proletarians being represented through the Kims. Additionally, the film is concerned with a very important idea in Marxist theory, that being false consciousness. False consciousness is a way of thinking that prevents a person from perceiving the true nature of their economic situation. We can see how the Kims adopt this ideology. They believe that they can rise in a society that is actively seeking to exploit them. This causes them to compete between other poor people and overall causing the lower class to collapse in on itself. Going back to Rerum Novarum, we can see once again how similar these works are. Rerum Novarum called for the protection of workers from such exploitation, warning against the concentration of wealth and urging the state and society to support the vulnerable. Specifically, Leo XIII says that the rich must not misuse their wealth to crush the poor. However, we can see the exact opposite occurring. The combination of unfair wages and the adoption of an ideology that they can rise in the class ladder lead the Kims to force Moon Guang out, preventing class solidarity and resulting in perpetual discourse. While Rerum Novarum urged society to support the vulnerable, Parasite shows us what happens when those warnings are ignored. Food in Parasite is rich in meaning, literally and symbolically. The structure of meals in the film equates to real greed. The Parks treat food more as a luxury and a comfort, while the Kims need it for survival. When Mrs. Park asks for ramdon, but expects it to be served with sirloin steak, it demonstrates just how far removed the Parks are from the working class. Ramdon is typically just a mix of two different brands of instant noodles. But when Mrs. Park incorporates sirloin steak into the Ramdon, it reflects the uncomfortable combination of classes. It's a metaphor for how the poor and rich are forced to interact but can never truly mix. The scene becomes even more symbolic when you realize that it's cooked just as the Kims and Moon Guang begin to fight, underscoring how luxury is maintained through the suffering and competition of the lower class. Leo XIII emphasized that all people should be able to access food, that it should be a right, not a privilege. Parasite helps drive this point home. The use of food as a luxury rather than a necessity is a cue that not all are being nourished by the society that they live in. I think one of the reasons why Parasite stands out so much more than any other film in the 2010s is the way that it's able to force the audience to confront the systems that dehumanize the poor and insulate the rich. In this way, its themes align directly with Rerum Novarum's urgent call to uphold the dignity of labor and recognize the humanity in every person, regardless of class. Bong Joon-ho may not quote scripture, but in his own way, he preaches just like Leo XIII. The themes in Parasite by Bong Joon-ho and the sentiments expressed in Rerum Novarum by Pope Leo XIII express a loud and clear message that we cannot continue to build comfort for the few on the backs of the many.